Hello, thank you very much for watching. My name is Bronte Schultz and I'm a PhD candidate researching horror on and about television at Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. My paper for the Australasian Horror Studies Network Symposium on Magic is titled Can You Do It Surrounded? Magic and Television in Inside Number 9. Inside Number 9 is a BBC Two horror comedy anthology written and performed by Reece, Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton of the League of Gentlemen. The fifth series features an episode titled Misdirection. It begins with a young magician, Neville Griffin, murdering party performer Willy Wando to steal the levitation trick with which he makes his name. 9 years later, he is visited by Gabriel, a trainee journalist and magician. We learn that Gabriel is Willy's grandson, and he seemingly attempts to gain access to Neville's safe, where he keeps Willy's notebook, via a series of poorly executed tricks. At the episode's conclusion, however, we realise that the tricks have themselves been a form of misdirection, through which Gabriel skillfully drew from Neville all he needed to murder his wife and frame him for her death. Shearsmith and Pemberton discussed the episode on the BBC Sounds podcast Inside Number 9, on which Pemberton says of the episode's title, "This could be the title of Inside Number 9. That's what we do every single week, and the notion of doing something where you say, this is misdirection, but the misdirection is the misdirection, that was the key." In a critical scene, Neville discusses his dislike of street magic, arguing that it's the ultimate trivialization of the craft to reduce it to the effect only. To demonstrate, he performs a simple card trick, then a narrativized version of it that is notably more effective. The misdirection, he explains, is the elaborate narrative that allows a simple trick to hide in plain sight. To this, Gabriel asks, does it cut both ways? Could you use the magic to detract from a story, particularly a story you want to be kept secret? Thus begins his own series of misdirections. Though as we learn in the final scene, his trap was already set. Within seconds of meeting Neville, he had exchanged his ring for a replica fitted with a tracking device, which proves vital to his murderous revenge. I recently interviewed magician Ben Hart, who, like Neville on street magic, criticised TikTok performances on the grounds of the medium's reliance on brevity and frequent uploads, preventing long-term development and the inclusion of narrative. When I coach people, they come with a trick, and usually the trick is bad, not because the trick itself is bad, but because it has no weight to it. It has no ritual, he said, adding that magic is a peg on which you can hang a lot of story and emotion. This is the essence of both misdirection and the entirety of Inside Number 9. Jamie Ian Swiss argues that magic can never be as effective on television as on the stage or the street, as the camera never blinks, and more important, does not shift and follow and focus where the magician subtly directs. But Inside Number 9 exploits this limitation to produce astonishment and horror. In Inside Number 9, Pemberton notes that all the tricks in the episode are doable except the levitating chair, which they achieved with a crane, adding that a stage magician couldn't just paint the mechanics out in post-production. Due to the trick's apparent impossibility, he adds, the episode's director, Guillermo Morales, wanted to not cut away, because if you cut away, it could have been a televisual trick. But this, of course, is precisely what it is, and in the broadcast episode, the camera does cut away, switching between multiple angles on Willy, who, when Neville asks, can you do it surrounded, replies, about 100 degrees, and Neville himself, watching with disbelief. But this is its own misdirection, what Hart terms a secondary moment within the trick. Editor Joe Randall Cutler also notes that the episode has a lot to say about editing as a story about sleight of hand and magicians, and how you take the attention away from somebody in order to cheekily sneak under the radar other information. That's very much a sort of parallel to what you're doing when you're editing, certainly Inside Number 9's. You're sneaking information into people's minds in plain sight, but without them sort of consciously realising it. The episode thus brings editing to the surface in a sort of conscious way, drawing attention to the fact that, as Shearsmith, himself an amateur magician, notes, a lot of magic on TV is suddenly doubtful because you think, well, it could have been done with editing. So you're talking about that very magic thing where you think, has it been done in camera or is there sleight of hand for the editing? Have I missed a beat? Have we just not looked at the feet or whatever it might be? The opening scene thus acts as a synecdoche of the entire programme. While the audience attempt to guess how Willie's trick is performed, they are distracted by the television mechanics of presentation. Meanwhile, Willie is distracted by his performance and the promise of alcohol, and Neville murders him in a gory sequence that itself also misleads the audience. The episode is not about the recovery of Willie's ill-gotten notebook, but Gabriel's entirely separate revenge. This, as Shearsmith notes, is all there in plain sight, but you've missed it or been looking elsewhere due to the use of the camera's unblinking gaze. For instance, exactly halfway through the episode, Gabriel performs a mind-reading trick and asks Neville to get him a piece of fruit, during which the camera follows Neville. With his and our backs turned, we later learn, Gabriel writes the number Neville chose, sent to his phone by a pen fitted with the same tracking device as the fake ring, on a piece of paper with wax, facilitating the trick's conclusion. But this too is a bluff. Seconds later, Gabriel produces a razor, which he uses to cut the fruits to demonstrate its sharpness. He then ostensibly slices open his hand, smearing fake blood over the paper to reveal the numbers. Neville later smugly notes that Gabriel placed the real razor in a different pocket from the one he removed it from, for the trick's conclusion, taking the real one from his jacket to illustrate. In so doing, he seals his fate. His fingerprints are now on the weapon that Gabriel later uses to murder his wife. The very element Swiss identifies as a limitation of television magic thus allows clues to the ending to hide in plain sight. An exemplary use of Lamont and Wiseman's definition of misdirection as that which directs the audience towards the effect and away from the method. Insight number 9 also exploits its medium for enchanting effect in episodes that do not explicitly feature magic, such as 2015's Seance Time, which follows the production team behind a prank show, Scaredy Cam, that was previously cancelled after a little boy wet himself during a live broadcast. Obsessively preoccupied with his reputation, its host, Terry, appears to regret this only insofar as it damaged his career. It is underscored when he responds to a new participant, Pete, accidentally killing an actor during filming, merely with anxiety for his professional standing. Terry is confronted with the fatality of his callousness, however, when the actor's corpse is possessed by the spirit of the little boy, who, unbeknownst to him, drowned himself to escape the humiliation of having his terror broadcast to the nation. Here, the act of ghost seeing carries significant implications regarding the morality of spectatorship. Dale Townsend posits that Shakespeare provided early writers of Gothic with precedents for two distinctive modes of ghost seeing, the one tragically figured in Hamlet and the other in Macbeth. In the latter, Shakespeare established connections between ghost seeing and guilt. Only Macbeth can see Banquo's ghost because he is responsible for his murder. It is notable, then, that in Seance Time, the only character to see the spirit is Terry. There is, however, also another non-diegetic voyeur, the audience. Indeed, in the final moments, the ghost appears on a backstage monitor in an empty room. The monitor fills the screen, the ghost's enraged expression directed solely towards the viewer. Notably, Annette Hill argues that a magician or medium performs entertainment that is based on audience participation. Most singers or actors can still perform even if there is no audience, but a magician or medium must have an audience because their form of communication and entertainment is created with a high degree of public participation. Here, we see that this is also true of insight number 9. The narrative relies on observation. This is even more applicable to 2018 live Halloween special Deadline, which, inspired by Stephen Volk's 1992 mockumentary Ghost Watch, ostensibly depicts genuine events. It initially appears to be a standard episode, but 5 minutes in, the sound repeatedly fails, and a continuity announcer says that BBC Two will instead air a repeat from Series 1, A Quiet Night In. At this point, around 20% of the audience switched off. The remainder of the episode follows Shearsmith, Pemberton, and guest star Stephanie Cole behind the scenes as they are plagued by the ghosts that haunt Granada Studios, where the episode is purportedly being filmed. It concludes with Cole slitting her own throat with a kitchen knife after taking a call from Alan Starr, a fictional Coronation Street crew member who hanged himself in the studios, Pemberton being electrocuted, triggering a power cut, and Shearsmith falling from an unstable staircase after encountering a spectre. Throughout the episode, Shearsmith and Pemberton explicitly acknowledge the presence of an audience. Notably, another of Swiss's criticisms of television magic is that the illusions of conjuring can be seen as, among other things, a kind of special effects achieved within live conditions, and it is that very liveness, rather than the size or scale of the effect, that lends conjuring its universal appeal and power. While Ghostwatch purported to be live and invited calls from viewers, Deadline, with the exception of clips from other broadcasts and Shearsmith's Ball, genuinely was live. This is emphasised by Shearsmith tweeting while on air, a tweet to which the League of Gentlemen's Mark Gatiss, who was mentioned in the episode, replied. Shearsmith also reads tweets from viewers, again highlighting the centrality of viewership to the programme. The audience is implicated in the episode's final moments, the looped replay of one of the final shots of A Quiet Night In which Shearsmith and Pemberton's characters are fatally shocked. In A Quiet Night In which the predominant tone is farcical absurdity, this moment provokes laughter. In Deadline, however, it becomes increasingly uncomfortable, forcing the viewer to confront the troubling nature of the pleasure of viewing violent death through the safety of a screen. As Alexandra Helen-Nicholas argues, video technology has meant that we can control time itself, allowing the viewer to rewind and replay favourite moments. Here, Insight Number 9 draws attention to the sadistic potential of this kind of spectatorship. Helen-Nicholas likewise notes that the intent behind Ghostwatch was much more than a mere Halloween prank. Instead, Volk sought to turn the audience's attention back on their own increasingly passive viewing habit. Shearsmith and Pemberton likewise achieved this effect through an act of televisual necromancy, resurrecting themselves only to slaughter them again, repeatedly with increasing horror. Darren Brown argues that magic isn't about fakes and switches and dropping coins in your lap. It's about entering into a relationship with a person whereby you can lead him, economically and deftly, to experience an event as magical. Hilary Mantel likewise notes that when a trick is performed, the harder you watch, the more you may miss. You become committed to its process, you're complicit, and your attention moves as directed. Insight Number 9 exemplifies such misdirection, which, as Randall Cutler notes, rewards second viewings, because you can watch many of the episodes in a completely different light and enjoy it on a whole different level. This is a kind of magic exclusive to the screen. Thank you very much for watching.